Hello and welcome to the Strong Suit Podcast, where we focus on the people part of your business. Every single episode, I feature a world-class expert on talent and recruiting so that you can build a company filled with rock stars. My guest today is an entrepreneur, pretty young entrepreneur, but he's pretty savvy. We're going to learn a lot about how he's built his team at a phenomenally cool company based in Denver. But first, let me tell you a bit about Chris Klein. Chris is a product that's essentially your smart watering assistant. So if you think about kind of having a personal watering assistant that you don't have to worry about, kind of has your guided schedule and automatically adjusts for the weather, and of course you can control it from your smartphone, that's what his company is all about. Based in Denver, he's got 60 people already. Obviously, it's a combination of software and hardware. And over the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about a little about the product, but more importantly, the people part of how he has scaled the company. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. So why don't you just give us 60 seconds at a very high level on what got you here? So what about smart watering fascinated you to the point where you decided to actually start a company?
Yeah. So actually, it was our third year of drought in Denver, Colorado. And the local utility here, Denver Water, did a very well-known, nationally well-known campaign that was very much focused on outdoor watering and basically how wasteful that is and the small things that consumers can do to conserve water when they're watering outdoors. And so that was something that really kind of got my interest. I'm a homeowner. I have an irrigation system. I worked hard to conserve water where I could and adhere to the restrictions that they had put in place. But I really struggled with the product that was in place to actually do that. And it felt like more of a pain than it should have. And I'd say that I sort of added it to my bug list that summer. I wouldn't say that was enough to actually start the company. But it wasn't until I noticed that the community was struggling with the same problem that I was.
Got it. So what did you and the team come up with? Maybe describe, just help the listeners visualize what the product is.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a piece of hardware that replaces the clock that if you have an irrigation system, has some knobs and dials on it. You probably have been frustrated with it. You kind of pull that off the wall. You put ours on. And then everything is controlled through the smartphone. It hooks into kind of local weather networks and does really smart things like not watering in the rain, but then also adjusts over the seasons.
Got it. Fantastic. It's kind of one of those things that totally makes all the sense in the world, right?
Yeah. A lot of, we have kind of internally a joke about no brainer, how many times like hashtag no brainer has been used with our product.
Yeah, great. And you're about 60 people, is that right?
A little under that, yep.
Okay, super. So how did you learn to hire people, Chris? I mean, where along the way, I'm sure you've made some mistakes along the way, but how did you even begin to learn how to ramp a team of that size?
Yeah, early on it was, I think, just a lot of networking and trying to find people that maybe could share the same vision that, I and my co-founder had early on. Hopefully people that fit some immediate needs that the company needed.
Yep.
And that was sort of, I guess, our early strategy. And a lot of that too was building out the product. So it's fairly straightforward. Hey, we need XYZ engineer and this person for hardware, development, which made it kind of easy.
But you really jumped in. It's not like you took a class on recruiting. No. You really just kind of started hiring people.
Yes, absolutely.
What does the process look like? So fast forward to today, you got, 6 people. If I was interested in working at the company, what would be the process I would go through?
Yeah, and this is some really basic things, but it's something that we had to kind of get in the habit of doing. And so one is writing a really good job rec. And really spending the time to outline that and make sure it is exactly the role that we are looking for.
Most of them are just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, they can be, right? And I think a couple of the job recs that we've written just recently, we've had people say that like they have applied to the company and we're excited about the company because of the job rec.
Right. So it really pulled in someone who wasn't thinking about applying.
Exactly. Yep. And so that was exciting. And then what we do from there is, given that we have a really good job rec, then we have an outline of skills and experiences and things that we're looking for in candidates. And so we have an initial screen that we'll do. And then if you kind of get through that screen, then we have you come in and meet with, like a quick, maybe 3 or 4 rapid fire kind of interview with 2 people in each one. But in that one, we actually take the outline, we look at your past experience, and we write out the questions ahead of time.
Yep.
And they're very specific for the people that are in the room and with that person that is interviewing, and try to make it a very nice process.
Got it. Fantastic. And anything unusual after the interviews that you put people through?
Well, no, other than I think what is kind of fun that we do here is it's called the Fist of Four. And so we grab everyone that had done the interview. We get together in a room, and before we start going into, whether this person should join the team or not join the team, everyone either shoots 1, 2, 3, or 4. And 1 is I would quit if this person joined. 4 is I would quit if they didn't join. And then 2 or 3 is sort of in the middle, but you can't be on the fence. So you got to be one way or the other.
Got it. And is it a blackball process where anyone that says I would quit if we hire them can stop the hire, or is this all input into the hiring manager who ultimately makes the decision?
It's input, but I'd say we've never had the circumstance where someone was a 1 and like that person still got hired. And so what we usually do, if there's some 2s, then we'll go around, talk about it. If they can switch to a 3, great. And if they can't, then that's also probably a blocker.
Okay, got it. Very good. Oh, so you will block even on a 2?
Yeah, I mean, if there's enough 2s, it's kind of like, hey, no, we're looking for 3s and 4s for the most part.
Got it. I understand. So where have you found to be the best sources for candidates these days? As you've hired hardware developers, software developers, I'm sure sales and marketing, what are you finding to be the best places to look?
So, from a engineering perspective, we do use recruiters. That's been very helpful, especially here in Denver. Now we do kind of get, some referrals internally, which is always nice if you can get one of those. But from a marketing standpoint, we've been looking at a lot of like food companies lately. Just kind of finding people to kind of pull out of food companies.
Why is that?
What's really interesting is there's a lot of brand managers in the food space, and they're very strategic thinkers. They're very used to kind of collaborating across product and marketing and sales, and they're almost like little mini entrepreneurs. I even hate to call them mini because they basically are entrepreneurs, and they're just fantastic hires to bring in in a lot of different ways.
Super. Let's talk about retention. So you work so hard to hire these 60 people. How do you keep them? You're competing in Denver with some great companies I'm sure can afford to pay way more than you. What are some of the things that you've put in place to keep your people when the headhunters call?
Yeah, I mean, so, and this is a challenge for any company. But one is we really try to think about our company where we're uniquely positioned, where we have, a physical product that goes into a number of consumer channels, which is unique. It's a purposeful product.
And people can identify with it, right?
Right. And it's, doing good. And that's really important to people. It's a tech company. We're downtown, and we have a very unique mission. And so that together is a good starting point of kind of being a unique company. But then, and I actually listened to one of the other podcasts, I think where we do struggle is kind of how do we help people define their career path and really kind of lay that out in a way that like it's understandable and obtainable. Yeah.
As a smaller company, there's only so many places to go up, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be creative about how to develop skills and competencies and new experiences across sideways, right?
Yeah.
Functional moves or changes, et cetera. So can you give an example of something creative you've come up with for someone to retain them when maybe you were at risk of losing them?
Yeah.
Other than just paying them more money?
Yeah, no, we try to avoid the latter if we can, unless it's, just absolutely, we're that far apart from where they are market. But I think it's kind of similar to what you said, it's growing their role and really understanding like, hey, where would you want to take on more responsibility? And do we have that option in the company, or can we make that option in the company? And can we take maybe some of these bigger decisions, these bigger strategic projects or initiatives that maybe feels like it should be owned by the exec team just because that's where it starts, and say, well, no, can we push that down to another role or another position and really let that person go run and sink their teeth into it?
And in the meantime, it's something that person would love to get their teeth into and will re-energize them for another 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to like remember that and constantly be thinking that way. And that's one thing I'm trying to get better at as a leader.
Did you find that was a risk worth taking, or has it backfired in some cases where you actually did push too much down and it blew up?
I would say it almost rarely ever backfires. Especially if you have good people, right? If you have great people, it just rarely ever backfires.
Absolutely. You almost can't delegate enough, right?
Right. Yeah.
Good. That's great. And so how much of your time as CEO do you spend on, let's broadly call it the people part of the business, recruiting, retention, interviewing? If you had to, look at a month, how much do you think you spend on that?
I don't know, maybe it's definitely less than half my time, and I don't know if that's right or wrong.
Yep.
Now, like when we are in kind of a hiring, it's called sprint, which we will be going in here soon. I'm very much involved in that. I love that.
Yep.
I probably need to be better as I think about retention, getting involved now that they're in the company and more often with them.
What do you mean by sprint? Walk us through a hiring sprint. Obviously, people know that from maybe a software development perspective, but what's a hiring sprint?
Well, I think for us, we're just in an interesting position where we're very seasonal. And so we'll do kind of a big sprint before our season, bring in a bunch of people,
Right.
and then we'll kind of start getting through the season. And if it is landing where we want, then we'll kind of sprint again after the season and start building up for, the end of the year.
Got it. So it's a step function type of thing.
Yeah.
And these roles are what, sales roles, or what kind of roles?
It's actually, this one will be across the board. It'll be product engineering, marketing, sales, and even customer success.
Got it. And the product is sold through distribution or direct to consumer?
Both, actually. So it's, sold through all kinds of retail and wholesale and just direct to consumer.
Got it. So what do you as CEO worry most about when it comes to the people part of the business? What do you lose sleep about, whether it's recruiting or retention or something totally different?
Do I have all the skill sets to really put together the people part of my business?
Yeah. So the imposter syndrome, right?
And how do I be honest with myself, know where I can excel and where, even though I could probably do it, I could slow things down. And then how do I work around that?
Have you been able to identify any mentors, investors, board members who have particular expertise in that area that have really helped you with some good advice? And if so, what was the advice?
Frankly, I have not yet, and it's only because I'm just starting to search this out. This is a new phase for me to really start to figure out.
Got it. I understand. Well, I appreciate your honesty. So, give us a sense of a recruiting success story from the past 12 months. Maybe a Rockstar hire that you made. You don't have to name names, but what worked well in that particular process that made it just work perfectly.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited about our marketing hires that we've had over just the last 6 months. And really, I think what worked out very well is that we had our VP of marketing position that we went out and hired for. And throughout that process that we ran, I think, a really tight process of everything I outlined before. And we actually got we filled 3 spots with just that one role because we had other candidates that interviewed that were almost right there.
Yeah.
But then they could come in different roles. And, it was just a fantastic kind of class, I'd call it, where we got 3 brand managers. We were just trying to hire one.
Fantastic. And you hired 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you made room in the budget. You basically said, look, these are 3 people that can move the needle. It's worth spending the money.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it. Inversely, tell us about a nightmare hire that you've made. Again, you don't have to name names or the position, but something over the past couple of years where you just missed something and it wasn't long before you knew you'd made a mistake.
Yeah. I wouldn't call this one a nightmare one, but it was a learning, I guess I would call it example, where there was a person we were interviewing and they said one thing that really just got me, right? And I just knew that it was like, oh my gosh, this is a bad, this is a red flag.
Yeah.
And I asked a question around it, and the person was very smart and got out of it, right? They found their way out of it. And then throughout the rest of the interview, really kind of did everything they were supposed to, where it threw me for a loop, where I was like, well, maybe I can't make that quick judgment on this person. And they actually are this other thing, right?
Yeah.
We ended up hiring them, and it turned out that they were what that red flag.
Was it a personality characteristic, kind of a softer skill?
Yeah, absolutely. It jumped right out, and then
right.
Person got around it.
Got it. So they said they were a team player when they really were not a team player, or whatever it was. How long did it take before you realized, oh boy, we made a mistake?
That's another thing is it's interesting is that I feel like I saw it probably within a month.
Really?
But then we ended up we kept going for a number of months, which probably was also not maybe the best.
Yeah.
Move.
Yeah. You knew quickly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was kind of confirmed pretty quickly.
So what leads you to wait? Is it you're so exhausted from going through the process that you can't imagine doing it again? Or did you just need a warm body desperately that you were willing to put up with it?
No, I think it's probably my personality where, and I think there's pros and cons to this. where I'm willing to work with people longer, right? I'm willing to like, can we work through this? Can we improve? Is there, is there an opportunity here to turn some things around? I always believe in, kind of positive intent, like there's a way through it.
Yeah, you're an optimist.
Yeah.
And so you assume that people can change and things can change.
Yeah. It's probably not always the best, but I would say for a lot of times it works.
I would say that it's a key trait for an entrepreneur, right? No, if you're not an optimist and you don't think you can change the world, then you don't start a company. So by definition, that may mean that you feel like people can change their stripes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Got it. So before we wrap up, let's talk about something specific, your employee referral program. It's something we talk a lot about on the program because for most companies, they find that some of their best hires come from their employees. Do you have an employee referral program? If so, what does it kind of look like? And if not, are you thinking about putting one in place?
We are absolutely thinking about putting one in place. We don't have one yet. And we are trying to think about the best way kind of to implement one of these.
Got it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the best of class companies, I've seen half their hires come from employee referrals. And those same hires tend to stay the longest, do the best. I mean, it's the number one source for most companies. The good news is you don't have to pay a ton of money.
Yeah.
$500, $1,000. I mean, far less than you might spend on other sources. So it sounds like that's a key next step as you ramp over the next 12 months.
Absolutely.
How many people will be part of this hiring sprint over the next season?
Well, this next quick one, I think we've got maybe like 9 or 10
Got it.
recs that we're looking at, and then we'll look again kind of in Q4.
Got it. So you could be 75, 80 people by the end of the year.
Probably won't be. Could be, but probably won't be.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, how can people learn more about the product or get in touch with you, Chris?
So they can go to Rachio.com. And then if you want to get
Rachio, correct?
Yep. .com. And if they want to get in touch with me, I'm just Chris at Rachio.com.
That is pretty easy. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for making the time. We appreciate the chance to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. This has been great.